when we last looked at this engine, we were pulling the timing cover, the cylinder heads, and we pulled the camshaft out. And I kind of stopped right there because the camshaft was a pretty unique piece. And what it was a Manley camshaft. It's a solid lifter Manley camshaft. Now, Manley makes performance products. You can look them up, and they have a lot of nice stuff. But camshafts is not something they do lately. And back in the 70s, you used to be able to buy these Manley camshaft kits, or their Thunderstick camshafts, or whatever. And it dawned on me when I was looking at the parts before I figured out what it was, is this is just probably a kit. And at the time, they used to offer a kit with for a small block Chevy, and it was basically it offered aluminum retainers, hardened locks, Z28 springs, posi locks, long slot rocker arms. Well, maybe the M in there means Manley and not Manley like I originally thought. And I thought, that's probably what this is. Okay. But the part number didn't make any sense. I think it was A105M, and it didn't really make any sense to me. So I just did some quick measurements, and it did not match their papers. I dug up some papers on the internet, but it matches everybody else's papers. So what I found here is I had a lift at that push rod of about 338 and 325, and it puts me right around that basically 490, 510 lift range, okay? So I thought, well, there's only one camshaft that really kind of matches that, and so I did a duration at 50, hence the degree wheel. So I did the numbers at 50 thou. What I came up with was 256 on the intake, 270 on the exhaust, and the other numbers I came up with was 507 lift and basically 490. If you look it up, those numbers really match the old GM 140 camshaft. And what it was an upgraded version for the 302 engines that GM had in 69 there, 68, 69, 67. And that's what it appears to be. So those cams were 257, 270. And I think they were, geez, if I remember correctly, 493, 512-ish, somewhere in there, lift. Now, everybody has a different version, but only one person was probably grinding these things back at the time. So I looked up Manley's paperwork on those cams, and they had them a little bit lower on the lift, but some of the stuff didn't make sense to me, like why it would be that much lower. And the part number didn't line up anyway, so I'm not too sure. But I just think it's somebody's version, or Manley's version, of what the 140 camshaft was at the time. So somebody else has advertised similar ones with similar lift. I spent a lot of time looking at this because I can't find a definitive answer. But generally, the numbers point to it being their version of the GM 140 camshaft. Okay? So moving on, we were going to talk about compression on this engine. Now, this engine has a 420 dome, and it seems pretty high when you think about it, right? You would have a lot of compression, but basically 420 dome on a small engine is kind of needed to build some compression, okay? For instance, we're 30 over, we're about 20, 25 thou down the hole, and with a 72 to 76 cc head, I would put that, I don't know, if we go in the middle of those two, maybe say the heads were ground a little bit because they are 76 cc head. Let's call them 74. I would think that the engine would be right around, I don't know, 9.5 with a Velcro head gasket, so probably 9.7 with the steel shim and a little bit of trimming. About 20 down the hole, maybe 9.8. So this engine, even with that big of a dome and those open chamber cylinder heads, was only 9.5 to 9.8 to 1. Now we could figure it out exactly, but we're right there. We're pretty much on the number. If we want to know exactly what it is, we can measure that up, but that's where we're at, okay? Now, that's pretty cool. It's kind of a streetable engine still. You can actually work with that, right? What you want is a light car with a 4-speed. I don't think I want to throw in a heavy car with highway gears. Now, the cylinder heads. Let's just talk about these real quick. So basically, these angle plug heads are not real angle plugs, and obviously we figured that out a long time ago. And I'll show you what these are. Okay. If you look in there, you can see there's an insert. So what people used to do, they used to buy this kit, and it was by a fellow by the name of Andy Dunlap. And he would provide this fixture in these plugs. So basically you would plug your cylinder, your spark plug holes, and then you put this fixture on, and then you can make your self a set of angle plug heads like we did here, or they did here. Okay. So you can see every one of these holes has that adapter in it, right? Now, the whole idea of angle plug cylinder heads, let's get a light here. Let me just get a light. So back in the day, we didn't have Google. So the only guys that really knew how effective this stuff was were the guys that tested with it, did dyno tests, circle track, drag strip. GM marketed angle plug heads. Some people think it was a marketing ploy like 4-bolt main. Some people think they really weren't. Okay. And I think there's truth to all of this. But here's the thing. If you look at the benefits of an angle plug head, okay, what would be your biggest benefit right now? Well, if we look, we've raised the plug, okay? Now, raising the plug is pretty good. And on a flat top engine, I mean, it'll still work. But on an engine with a 420 dome, if we measured the distance from here to here to the tip of the plug to the base of the head, when it was straight in and on an angle, one would be way more beneficial with the dome piston, right? So what a lot of guys would do back in the day was put a trough in here, and they would promote flame front travel and get this burn going quickly, okay? One of the things angle plug heads were supposed to do was be able to facilitate with that, okay? You can call it a fire slot or a trench or whatever you want to call it. But people would work the combustion chamber, the dome, and the cylinder head. Now, did they make more power? I don't know. Did they flow more? Beats me. Never tested them. You know, would you have to run as much initial timing if you can get your flame travel to happen a little bit quicker or a little more complete? No. You would not. So there would be a benefit there. You would be able to pull some timing out. But again, I've never tested this. I've had 2 angle plug cars, like drivers. They were both super strong runners, but they were also both really good engines. So I don't know if they would have been better with or without angle plugs, but they both ran really well. But that's really the basis of it. You can come up with every argument you want why they would be good or better, but unless you tested it or you had access to that, you didn't know back in the day. Remember, this stuff was all done before Google. So people were trying things and testing things. So this is kind of a neat old build. So somebody took a large dome, made their own set of angle plugs, used an open chamber head and a camshaft kit, and tried to make a really stout little street engine out of this thing. Like I say, it wasn't a 70 Camaro, so looking back on it now, it's pretty cool. So that's kind of where we are in compression. That's kind of where we are in camshaft. So I think it's probably time we should probably pull the pan off. Okay, we just dropped the oil pan off this thing. Let's spin it around and see what we got. We have a very, very nice oil pump pickup bracket. He made a bracket for it, so that looks really good. Okay. Let's see what else we can see here real quickly before we start taking it apart. One of the things that had a chrome timing chain cover on it. I didn't really notice this before, but it has a little steel piece in the back with the full gasket. Okay. It doesn't even really look like it's been balanced. Like there's really no marks on anything, and we'll check that as we go. Small journal crank, 2-bolt main, everything looks about normal. Here's the crank number, 387-6764. All right. Let's take this apart and see what we find. Real quick, let's look in the oil pan. I don't see any metal. That's a good thing. All right. Let's get set up and get this apart. Okay. Get these are 1/2 inch, not 9/16 on these. That's not good. I don't like that rod bolt at all. All right. Look at that. The bearing stayed in the cap. A very good sign. A little scratched up. Nothing too major, I don't think. Grab our own extension. That bearing did not stay in. Okay, so one thing you don't want to do, don't hammer these things out, especially a forged piston. Don't even mark it up. There's no point. You'll just damage stuff. So we can see the wrist pin's good. A little bit of scratches on the piston. Really not too bad. There's even some life left in that ring. Huh. We have pressed pins. They're not floating. We don't even have ARP rod bolts in there. Do we? They look like factory rod bolts, but we'll take a better look at these in a bit. Everything looks pretty good though. Alright, let's take another one out. Actually, let's just throw this back in here, this bearing. We'll keep everything in order so we can take a look at it later when we're reassembling it. We should probably reassemble this engine and throw it into something. I don't know. Let me know if anybody thinks we should do that or if we should just give it away to a viewer or I don't know. Is there somebody out there that really wants the 283? Maybe let me know in the comments. Let's get the other one off here and see what we find. Yeah, that one's kind of not good. Loctite. I see. Not really sure why. Both of these I'm taking it. Crazy. Alright. Stop this piston out, this side here. See if we can get the cap off without hammering it. No is going to be the answer to that one. No wiggle. Again, be careful with this stuff. We'll just put these nuts on a little bit. Hopefully just one. And no, not one. This one doesn't want to come up that much. There we go. All right. Bearing looks okay. This one will probably look worn as well. Let's turn that engine before we do that. Just wanted to make sure this is straight up and down before I get this out of here. I don't want to catch the crank on the way by. I want to be able to hold up the back of the rod with the extension. Just slightly tap it out of there. And that's the end of her. Let's take a look at this one. Pin moves okay. A little bit of life left on those rings. Maybe not as much on that one. A little bit scratched up, that one. All right. Next. Also, before somebody points it out, we did see when we were looking at the bottom end that the it was numbered already, so we already knew we had everything numbered and in location. All right. When you're taking this stuff apart, just take your time and just be methodical about it. Just be careful. You don't want to drop anything. You don't want to ruin anything. It's not worth it to rush along and put everything at risk, right? So just keep that in mind when you're taking these apart. Wow. I know I look weak. I have a really bad tear in an elbow tendon there. It's still healing. Slowly, very slowly. So, should be using power tools, but I need to exercise. These are also loctated, as you can see. So, right to the bitter end, eh? Like, wow. Okay. I think a lot of people used to Loctite back in the days. I found this in a lot of older engines, so I guess I shouldn't be too surprised. Still looks good. We should see what year these bearings are. All right, let's see a quick look here. Again, everything looks good. Lots of life left on that ring for some reason. Maybe not that one. All right, let's see what you have for bearings. Let me find a place to set this down. These bearings are Clevice 77s. Clevice 77. There's CB 745P. They're a P bearing. They're 10 under. And they're from September of 1975. Wow, this engine's old. 1975. That's pretty cool. All right. Don't know how many miles it has on it. Doesn't look like a lot. But, yeah. Those bearings are, they're quite old. They're 49 years old. So everything we're looking at here is, honestly, it's a 70s build. That's what I assumed in the first place. It's pretty neat to see this, actually. So crank polish, so far. Set of rod bolts and rod resize. So far. And they okay, well. Okay, this bearing looks bad. It's not spun. Also 1975 bearing. Huh, okay. Let's get this back in the cap. This one does not look good. Doesn't fit very well in the shell, like at all. A little bit of dirt went through this engine over its life. Yeah, that was on the verge of spinning, that one. Doesn't feel good at all. All right. Is that right for you guys? Yeah. Okay. Again, make sure it's dead up and down. We'll give it a quick push. We don't want it, never want the rod bolt. So I do this all the time, so it's not a big deal. But if you don't do it all the time, just some little Clevi 77 sleeves or some little thin tubing or something to put on the rod bolts. Just in case you forget and you don't want to nick the crank and then try and clean it all up after. Okay. Well, the same as the others. Yeah, this seems this bearing won't even slide on the oil. This is brutal. Give me that bearing. All right, so let's just put this in here. We'll try that again. Let's just put that in there. It has nothing left. And you might not be able to see it on the camera, but it's this thing was a few more 7,500 RPM shifts or half a dozen more away from spinning a bearing or less. So whoever shut this engine down did it at the right time, believe me. This thing was on the verge of going. But I still think you can polish that out. Let's get those two off. Just do two at a time, makes it a little bit quicker. Good old cork gaskets back from the 70s. Still looks good. Swollen into place. Cap is good. Not falling apart. See what we have here. Bearing stayed in. Still loose. This one's quite loose too, actually. It'll probably fall out. Piston looks good. We can never tell without measuring them, but there's really no signs this thing had any real issues. Not big ones anyway. When we measure it all up before we put it back together, we'll see, or like I said, maybe we'll give it away. We'll see what happens. What's that? So what you don't want to find when you're taking your engine apart is a piece of metal of your knurling coming off. It's kind of crazy. All right. Let's get that back over on there. Oops. Not good. Not good. The engine has ingested quite a bit of dirt though. But we don't really know. In fairness, was it sitting for years? Was it open? Was it closed? What was going on? So we can't blame it on the engine builder. We don't really know the history of the engine, right? Or we don't know 50 years history of it anyway. Oops. Kind of messed that one up completely. All right. Again, you can see the dirt inside of there, right? Like it looks like metallic. All right. These bearings have captured or have dirt in them. It looks very clean inside of here. Super clean inside. Obviously we have I would assume it's a high volume just by the depth of it, but it probably isn't just by the fact that it has a stock spring in it. So I'll have to investigate that a little bit further. That's kind of interesting. And look what we have there. We have a hardened oil pump shaft and a plastic retainer still. Cool. People would actually be horrified to see that. The more I look at this crankshaft, all the way, there's a couple of nicks in. I'll show it to you here in a minute. It might have to be around the 20 and 20. Actually, the more I look at it, we'll see. Maybe not. It must have ran out of Loctite at this point. Same as the rest, just a little bit of dirt. Some wear on this bearing. So these rods need to be resized again for sure. Like I say, depending the last one doesn't have a spun bearing, we're going to need to at least polish the crank and see if the machine shop recommends cutting it. I'd make the recommendation, but they do it every day, so I'll just let them do it. We'll figure out what size we want to cut at and how much bearing cranks we're going to run. We'll go from there. One last one. Okay. Pretty much the same standard picture on all of them, right? Nothing really leading you to believe there's a major issue. So we'll set these down. We'll pull the crankshaft out and see what it looks like. Alright, stop those off there. A lot of the time you don't have to pound them off, they'll actually come off quite willingly, like this one did. Oh, let's get in the picture, sorry. So there's number one. Again, same situation, we have a lot of dirt in there. Okay. We don't have a lot of look at that. We have a little bit of block damage there. It's got some threads hanging out of the... That's fantastic. You see that on there? So the block is going to need a little bit of repair there. I'm not sure what that's all about. See if we can take a look at that here. Let's grab a light. Grab you guys. Interesting. All right, so that's something we'll have to take a look at. That's too bad. I don't think I've ever seen that before. I've seen it on deck surfaces with cylinder heads, but why couldn't it be in a crankshaft? Loose again. So, same thing. Yeah, we got some weird issues going on here. I don't know if that's dirt or metal. Looks like metal to me. So, all right. Every one of these things has threads on them. That's really unfortunate. We're going to have to investigate that and see what actually went wrong there. Maybe these aren't even the right main cap bolts. But we will see. They're all loose, I'll tell you that. Like, they all come off real easy. Like, barely locate. Nothing here, but we can see we had a lot of debris go through this engine. Maybe have a little bit of cap lock thing happen there. Okay. Jeez, man. What in the heck is happening here? If you know in the comments, or like, it's this isn't good. Anybody knows what's going on here, let me know if they've seen this before. Alright. We need to pull the camshaft back out, and we'll pull this crankshaft out and see what we see. Okay, we pulled the camshaft back out, so let's take a look at all these. Again, we can see some damaged threads in these holes. Let's grab a light. That isn't really working. Yeah. Okay. See somebody hit the crank there with probably during assembly. Yes. One of these rings looked really good in this engine, so I wouldn't be surprised if it came apart once and had at least one piston or one ring pack replaced. So almost every hole has something going on in it. Crazy. Alright. I'd pull the crankshaft out to show you guys, but I think we all know what a crankshaft is supposed to look like. I'll just leave a lane in here for the moment. You can see all the scratches on the crank. You know, like I say, minimum of polish. But unless this crank is on high side, probably a regrind. We'll see. One of the things that you like to watch out for, and I tell you this all the time, when we do the blocks, make sure we don't have broken ears, especially for the starter pads. And you can always tell, like, has somebody had iron tight or like leak stop, like this engine here. It was 4-cylinder here. It has a slight iron tight issue here. don't understand how one engine can have so much iron tight in it. And gel, because they mixed Dexcool with green antifreeze. It's great. So it all has to come apart all over a bad timing chain tensioner that let the timing chain jump. Well, GM 2.9. Anyway, that's kind of how you can tell if you have a iron tight or any of the stuff in the block, is it'll be marks like silly stuff, like the white stuff on the ground there when it came apart. Just a tip for you. But nothing else looks bad. The oil looks clean. Everything looks good. Could you rethread? Pardon me. Could you do something with those holes? I imagine. But we have a 61-year-old block here. So unless it's going back into a stock application, I'm not really sure that you do anything. But I am going to ask my machinist. He deals with a lot of this stuff. And see if he knows what's going on. Other than that, there's our pistons and rods, stock pistons, stock crank. So that'd be the end of this 283 teardown. I hope you guys enjoyed it. It was interesting. It looks like the engine was all mid-1970s and earlier. And this is what they did back in the day to make any power. And even the deep oil pan, the stock spring, the oil pump, the bracket they made, like they really gave it an effort and they really tried to make a decent engine here. This is pretty top notch for the day, really. I think, anyway. You know, even going as far as doing these cylinder heads. This was a really unique engine in its day, and it certainly wasn't running the mill anyway. So, kind of hats off to the guy, whoever he was. Oh, and here's the camshaft. When I pulled it out, there's the I think you can see. Now the light in the way. Sorry. The manly is hard to see, but there it is. Manly. Let's clean that off. There you go. And here's the part number. So if anybody actually knows, I think we know what it is, but if you actually do know, there you go. All right. So thanks for watching, and stay tuned, and we'll have something coming out here in the near future. Probably not a 290. Thank you. I'm coming back to this for 1 minute. Added bonus footage. Check out the gel from the green antifreeze. And it's all the way through there. So when people say it doesn't matter, it probably will melt and break down at some point, but it kind of matters. It's everywhere. That is from putting green antifreeze in with Dexcool, just so you know. So if anybody tells you nothing happens, this is what I see anyway. It doesn't mean it's wrecked. It just means it's full of gel.